Hello, and welcome to Adumation Studios to this beginner-friendly tutorial where we are going to be creating this sci-fi vehicle, which is made for exploration in Blender. And this is what Blender is going to look like when you first open it. And what we're going to be doing with this default cube here is we're going to be scaling it on the x-axis to start out with. Go into edit mode, do a Control R, and add an edge loop right in the middle. Once you got that, you can go to the faces, do an alt, an alt, and just delete all these faces. Oh, missed one. Once you've got all those faces taken care of, we can get out of edit mode, add a mirror modifier, and just shoot the axis that works for you. In this case, it's my y-axis. And you also want to make sure you turn on clipping because that is going to prevent the two halves here from intersecting with each other. Alright, the next thing you're going to want to do is choose these two edges right here on the top and bottom of the body of the car that we're about to make. And you're going to want to press Control B, and that's going to bevel our car. And you can kind of see here how controlling the bevel will kind of determine the shape of the car we're about to make. So this right about there will work for me anyway. The next thing you're going to want to do is add an edge loop by doing a Control R and selecting this thing. And if we go to the X now, we kind of want to add an extra dimension to the bevels that I have. So we can just kind of move that on the Y-axis. And that is looking pretty good. Now we want to do that on the bottom also. So just do a Control R. Looking at the front again, we can just kind of pull this right there. And that is looking really good now. So that is the beginning of our car vehicle. So the next thing we're going to want to do is do a Control R right here. And you know what? I'm actually thinking that this is maybe a little bit too long. So how about we just select everything by pressing A and scaling it on the x-axis. And just trying to get it to about the same size I had on my original model. Alright, there we go. So now that we have that, we can do a Control R once again. And Control R is a very useful feature because it allows you to do a lot of things. So once you have Control R kind of taken care of here, and you know what, I think I'm just going to hand do this. So once you press Control R, you can just kind of move it to the location that you want to. And this I just had as a window, so I just kind of take this, moving it on the y-axis by pressing pressing extrude, then going into the car, and then scaling it on all axes just by pressing S. And that is looking pretty good compared to my original model, so that works. Okay, so once we have the window taken care of, and as you can see, the mirror modifier is doing an excellent job of mirroring everything. The next thing we're going to want to do is create the panels on the exterior of the actual thing. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pressing I, which is going to insert a face that is slightly smaller than the original face. Then we're just going to extrude it just a little bit, just to get that panel look. You can extrude this more if you want a more distinct panel, but for me I didn't really want that, so we're just going to go with that. And if you want more panels, you can always just do a Control R, like I'm doing right now, and just kind of move them around, choose where you want your panels, and just go ahead and do it. Alright, so after that, we're going to just keep making our panels here. So we just have to press I, and then extrude it a little bit. And if they're a little off, it's okay. It's not, these are kind of minor details at this point, so it's not really a big deal if they're slightly off. And as you can see here, I'm not really copying the values from each individual one. I'm just kind of going as I go along. So really, it doesn't matter too much. It's just a tiny detail to make your car look even better. And so I'm just going to keep making these panels here. I might speed up the process just for it to be a little bit easier for you guys to follow. Alright, there we go. Now all the panels, or I guess most of the panels that I wanted to include are within my model now. And if we even go to rendered view and we change the engine to, whoop, my bad. We change the engine to cycles real quick. Let me take a look. Or I guess that's not really good, is it? We will just use the sky texture real quick. And just making this 0. Don't worry about what I'm doing right now. I just want to show you guys how the panel lines are looking. And they're looking pretty good in our cycles render engine. So I think we can continue on. Alright, the next thing we're going to want to add are the ladders at the top of this thing, as well as kind of the back area of the vehicle as well. So the first thing I think we want to kind of do is the back area. And what I did for that is basically just extruding out and then scaling it a little bit. Then extruding out a little bit more and just scaling it just a tiny bit more. Just to get that back area looking more just distinct and nice. And once I had the back area complete, the next thing I did was I made a ladder. And here's how we're going to make our ladder. We're going to take this cube here. We are going to scale it down quite a lot actually. I'm going to move it to the right. Let's actually click on this so then we got a better view of what we're looking at here. So we're going to do this. We're going to scale it on the Z, just making it slightly bigger. And this is going to be one of the sides of our ladder. Maybe just a bit more. And that's looking pretty good for our ladder for right now. The next thing you're going to want to do is do a Shift D. And that's just going to make a duplicate of it. And that's going to be the other side of our ladder. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is add another cube that's obviously going to be our ladder steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is you see this 3D cursor is at the center, which is where it's going to spawn the next cube I add. But I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to right click. I'm going to snap the cursor to select it, and that's going to put it right there. I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to scale it on the X, and that's looking pretty good. I'm also going to scale it on the Z because clearly we do not need a ladder step that is that large. And of course scaling it on the Y just to do that. Alright, so if we go back to this X view just by pressing it and moving it a little bit over, scaling it on the Y, and there we go. Okay, so now we're going to be using an array modifier. And what that's going to do is it's going to create multiple copies of our stair step. So we're going to move this down actually just a bit, right about there. And we're going to go to the modifiers tab and we are going to add an array modifier. And actually now that I'm looking at it, this ladder is kind of messed up on this side. So we're going to just scale that on the x-axis just a little bit. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that's looking good. Now we can just add our array modifier. And factor x is not what we want because you can kind of see it's going that direction. We don't really want that, do we? What we want is to move it on the Z, and as you can see, it's adding another one. And we would just choose a placement. It doesn't have to be perfect, mostly because I didn't really render the front part, or the back part, excuse me. But there you go, and that's really it. Just kind of play around with it, see what you like when you create the ladder, and just increase the count a bunch. That might be too much, but that is enough. And that is going to be our first ladder. So what we're going to do now is just select all, or actually first of all, now we're going to click apply on this modifier. We're going to shift select all of them and we're going to do a Control J. And that is going to join our ladder to, or I guess all the pieces of the ladder together. And that is looking pretty good for the back. Okay, so how about we go here? We're going to do Shift D because I had 2 ladders originally. And that's what we're going to add to the back. Alright. Now, the next thing I'm going to want to do is create that doorway in the back. And this one, and that was pretty simple to create. Mostly made with the Control R. So we're going to add a cube here. I'm going to go to the top view real quick. And we are going to scale this thing on the Y. And scale it on the X too, I guess. Yeah. Alright, here we go. Just kind of figuring out the placement for the door here. So if you move that forward a little bit, do that much, I think that should work. Yeah, and maybe just rotating it 90 degrees because I didn't really like how it was going. All right, so here, so this is the beginnings of our doorway. So the first thing you're going to want to do is we are going to just extrude it out just a little bit and just scale it out, which gives it just this kind of nice bevel effect, which looks great for hard surface modeling. The next thing we're going to want to do is just do that one more time, maybe. That is looking pretty good for a doorway. Now, I might push that back a little bit. Now, to get some of the effects on the doorway, I just use the Control R function. You want to increase the count however much you want to. You can kind of do less or more, depending on what you like. And then just do an Alt select, and that selects all of them. Do a Shift Alt just to select the rest of these here. Oh, my bad. Alright, there we go. And what we're going to be doing is just extruding this out on the Z to get a nice looking kind of sci-fi doorway here. Another thing that I'm going to do real quick maybe is just do this. Do a Control R with 2 edge loops this time. Yeah. And then I'm just going to take these, my bad, and these as well. And maybe just move them back a little bit, just to give it some more emphasis there. And that is looking pretty good. Alright, the next thing we're going to want to do is also add a little edge, because obviously how else are they going to get onto our truck here? So we're just going to scale this a little bit. And that is looking pretty good. I'm also going to just do an eye here, just to make a smaller face, just like we did for the panels. And I'm going to extrude this on this axis, which is just natural. And also move it down a little bit, just so then it's lined up. And this is kind of what I was thinking as a, like a walkway that would come out of this, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, now we have our door. We got 2 ladders, but now what I want to do is add the ladders on the top of our actual thing. But first, I want to create our headlights in the back. So I'm just going to do a Control R here, increase it to 2, and that should work pretty well, I think. Actually, no, I might want it a little bigger, so just add Control R, add some edge loops here and here. And after that, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to select maybe all 3 of these. And then after that, I'm just going to extrude down a little bit. And maybe even scale it just slightly. And that is looking pretty good. I think we might want to just move it down just a little bit on the Z. Yeah. Okay. Next thing I'm going to want to do is press I. And then just extrude it a little bit. Or, actually, maybe not. Yeah, actually, yeah. That looks nice. And that's what we'll be doing with our back headlights. And we'll be making those red and all when we do the texturing on this thing, but that's not until later. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. Alright. The next thing we're going to be doing is at the top of this, we're going to extrude it up just slightly. Just because that is the effect that I want to kind of go for here. We're also going to maybe... Yeah, I like that. We're going to move it there. And also move this back. Or no. Okay, so basically we're just rotating this on the y-axis. Just to get a little bit of a bevel going. Another thing that I might do is just bevel... Okay, so you can just press Alt here. Maybe? Yeah, there we go. And we can just bevel this as well. Okay, that's looking nice. Now I also want to add a kind of vent up here, just for style, I guess. So I'm just going to do an eye here, just to make it a tiny bit smaller. Yeah, that could work. I'm going to do this, select these 2 faces as well, and then just extrude it down a little. And there is the beginnings of a vent. We can always just do a Control R here, but I think I find it easier to just, no, I'm not really a fan of that, I'm sorry. Here. Going back to here, just extrude this down, yeah, and maybe just scale it a little. Alright, there we go. That's looking a lot better than what I was originally planning. So, and that's such one of those things, you know, when you're 3D modeling, you can just change things sometimes because they don't really work for you. Or you don't really like the way something looks. That's just, I mean, everything is really your choice in this case. So going to the top now, I'm going to put that right there. Now you can't really see it, so we just got to move it up a little bit. Scaling it on the Y a little bit, scaling it on the X a little bit. And then we're going to do an array again, just like we did with the ladder. So just try to make this look good. we can add our array modifier. We can move it that way. And that is looking good for event. Yeah, I like it. You can click apply on that, and that is our first vent on the top of our thing. Okay. Next order of business is to add ladders to the top of this. So I'm going to do a Shift D. We're going to move it up on the Z. So just do a G and then Z on your keyboard. We're going to basically rotate it 90 degrees. So we're going to press R and then 90. Or whoa. No, so we're going to press R, then Y, then 90. There we go. And we're just going to try to line it up to how it looks right there. So we're going to just rotate it. Just press R. It should automatically be rotating it on this axis for you. And we're just going to move it here. And that's looking good. Now, yeah, all right, that's looking good. Okay. Next thing we're going to want to do is we are going to add an array modifier, not on the X, clearly, because we do not want to go on the X and not on the Y either. What we want to do it on should be the Z. There we go. And you can kind of see what we're going to be doing. We're just using an array modifier to just create multiple pieces of ladder. So here we go. And if you want them to be a little bit closer, you can always just do this, which may cause them to intersect a little bit, but that's okay. So we can kind of do this, and that's looking pretty good, I think. So we can probably hit apply on this. Go to the top view, just do a Shift D, and now we're going to be mirroring this over. So if you right click, press mirror, and then we want to do it on the axis it's on. So in this case, it's on the Y axis that we want to mirror it. So mirror, Y axis, and there we go. So now we just want to move this thing into position here, just to about where it was earlier. And that, actually maybe not. Alright, now that's looking pretty good. Okay. So once we have that, we can actually move on to the next step of the process, which is going to be creating our cockpit area. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is we're going to actually do an eye. And we are going to just determine some sort of thickness here that we want it to be for the icosphere to fit in it, which is what we're going to be using to create the cockpit. So if we do a delete and then faces, also be sure to delete any extra faces that may pop up. And there we go. And you can also kind of see the interior of our car, which I may or may not create. We'll see. But, alright, so here we have this. And now we need to move to the next step, which of course is creating our cockpit. We basically have the main body of the car basically done. And feel free to add more panels or anything else that you think you want to add for detail wise. But for now, I think I am pretty good with this. So we're going to actually move our 3D cursor like right there. Yeah. And then, alright. Alright, so we want to add our icosphere next. So we're going to go to add mesh and we're going to press icosphere. Okay. We want to move and keep all the basic settings the same. You don't really need to change anything here. And you can kind of see that it is fitting in quite nicely into our thing. And we're just going to move this on the X just a little bit because we really only need half of it. Maybe even scale it just a bit. Just so then everything is good. Another thing that we can actually do just to make this slightly better is go into edit mode on our body of a car and do an alt and select the faces that we have here. You can actually just extrude it out a little bit and kind of do an S as well, just to make sure that there's no like empty gaps or anything like that. And we can also just kind of scale the icosphere down too, just so then none of that happens. Alright, so now we have our icosphere, and this is going to be basically our main cockpit here. The one thing we're going to want to do though is we want to Shift D, and we're going to want to make a bigger icosphere, and that is going to be kind of like the outer layer of our cockpit, or the lines on our cockpit. And basically how we're going to be creating this is by using a wireframe modifier. So if we go to wireframe, and we can kind of see the beginnings of what we want to accomplish here. You can change the thickness if you want. If you want a thicker kind of exterior to your thing, you can do that, but I'm just going to keep it at the default because that is actually looking very nice. So that's what I'm probably going to stick with. So you can actually just do a Control A or just press apply. So that is the beginnings of our sci-fi car. We have the cockpit, we got the main body taken care of. Oh, my bad. And we basically have everything going on. And you know what? I think I might even add some panels down here, because why not? It's kind of looking kind of empty. So we're just going to do the same process we did earlier. Just do an eye, extrude out a little, eye, extrude out a little, eye. And you can really do whatever you want with this. You know, you could add, maybe you can add some other stuff here instead of having a window like I did. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do with this, and a lot of creative liberty that you have while you create this. So feel free to change anything, really. Yeah. Okay, so continuing on, we're making our panels here, and we are almost done. There we go. So that's actually looking a bit thick. So all right, that is looking very nice. Or keep pressing save. All right, there we go. So that is looking pretty good so far, I think. And I really like this sunset as well. I don't know why, but I do. Just looks nice. All right, so anyway, getting off topic. We got our panels, we have our ladder, we have a bunch of other stuff. So basically the body of our car is mostly done. One thing I do want to do though is I'm also going to just start this next thing before I'm probably going to just split this into parts. So this is part 1 here. So you're going to want to extrude downwards on the Z just to create a little middle area here. And once you have that middle area, actually I'm going to do this a little bit less here. I'm going to press, no, I'm not going to press anything. I'm just going to extrude it again. And this is going to really be the middle area of our car where the wheels are going to be kind of originating here. So I'm going to do a Control R, and you can do this as many times as you want. For the number of cuts, I'm just going to do 5 because that looks nice. I'm going to do an Alt select on the faces and just shift to select all of them. And I'm going to do an E and then an S. And that's going to allow me to scale it like this, all the way there, or like this. And you can really choose whichever one you want. In this case, I'm just going to extrude it in just a little bit. And that is looking nice. So that is basically the beginnings of our sci-fi car. And also the end of part 1 of this tutorial. So stay tuned for part 2, which should be getting uploaded soon. And thank you.